Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. You guys having a great Saturday. Welcome into The Real. If you're new here, like I said, please like, subscribe, and share. Yeah, good to see you guys again. I've been taking a little break for a little bit from Browns football, did a little more Cavs content recently, but just been taking a little break after the season. It's a nonstop grind and marathon, obviously, starting from training camp, really from the draft, really all the way till the Super Bowl. So I had to take a little break for a little bit, but yeah, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd really appreciate that. And welcome into The Real. But anyways, let's get right to it. So a lot of stuff going on right now in Cleveland Browns world. I've been sitting back watching it, just monitoring it, not really doing any reactions to it. Just wanted to sit back and observe, right? Just want to sit back and observe, see what's going on. But a lot has been going on in terms of rumors, that's for sure, and just who the quarterback's going to be for the Browns next season in 2026. And so obviously we have Shedeur Sanders coming back next year. You have Deshaun Watson coming back, supposed to be healthy for the 26th season. You still have Dylan Gabriel on the roster technically, although I think they'll end up moving him. So there's my answer on Dylan Gabriel. I think they'll end up moving him out of here before the start of the training camp. So maybe before the draft possibly too. So that leads us with Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, the two names you keep hearing the most: Shedeur, Deshaun Watson. Now, well, who do I think they'll go with as quarterback next year? Ideally, you'd want them to go with Shedeur because Shedeur's a rookie. He's on contract as a rookie deal, right? It doesn't cost you much. You can build around him. You can put more assets towards your receivers, to your linemen, stuff like that. But I don't know. I just got a weird feeling that they might explore other options because they've said that. They've left the door open. The head coach said it. He didn't commit to anybody from day one, which you didn't expect. Obviously, he just got here. But you just feel like there's a certain – I don't really feel like they're very as committal to Shedeur as you want them to be. If you want Shedeur to be the guy, that's just my opinion. I feel like they're leaving the door open to explore their other options, and I think they're putting that through their certain people in the media that the Browns like to feed information to. And I think also, if you just listen to what the general manager and the coach said, I think they're leaving the door open to possibly explore for somebody else to either come and be a competitor to Shedeur Sanders or maybe replace Shedeur Sanders. I don't know. Would I replace Shedeur? Only if I feel like I've given somebody significantly who's better, who's already proven and has higher upside, or is already proven, right? And so who's going to be making the decision, though? That's what I want to know. Because if it's ownership, or is it the general manager? Is it the coach? Ideally, most people assume it's going to be the GM, obviously collaborating with the coach. But we have an owner here who has, at times in the past, said go ahead and make a trade for $250 million, and the GM didn't really feel as comfortable proceeding further with the deal, as we heard. But he wanted so-and-so, so that's what he got. He went to Deshaun Watson. So we have an owner here who has meddled in before and has forced decisions. We have an owner here who, has made it clear that he wanted certain, some people last year wondered who really wanted Shedeur Sanders, right? They already drafted Dylan Gabriel, and you heard the owner say that Friday night after they took Dylan Gabriel and they left the building, there wasn't a consensus that they were going to take a quarterback the next day, really at all. And it wasn't until they got back there the next morning, had more conversations about it because he was still on the board, that they were like, yeah, we'll take Shedeur if he's there. I think ownership had a lot to do with that, in my personal opinion. I think when the guy generated, almost $300 million of revenue before he even took his first NFL start, or snap, rather, I think that says a lot about why an owner would want to pursue a guy like that in the 5th round. But especially when you got to pay off a contract for a quarterback that didn't work out for you. So, I think who's going to be making the decision, right? That's what I want to know first. And we've heard from the owner himself about that. And if we're taking Jimmy's word for it, going back to his press conference when they hired Munkin, uh, if Jimmy's is a man of his word, then he won't be involved. Here was Haslam back at his introductory press conference when they introduced Todd Munkin almost, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, February 3rd. Here was Jimmy Haslam.
You talked about his experience with the quarterbacks, and obviously Andrew before had mentioned whoever you guys hired as head coach would have a lot of input there. Like, how confident are you with Todd's experience that he can help give a long-term answer at that position?
Like highly confident. Now Andrew's got to help him. We need players, but I'm highly confident.
How much did players interactions you have with players over the course?
So he's highly confident that they can get it done. And he even went on in that press conference and said that, he believes that he believes right there that he's highly confident they can get the decision right, A. But also, B, he said it's entirely it'll be Todd's choice at the end of the day. And Todd and Andrew collaborating together. So we've heard this word collaborate, right? Now, we heard this word collaborate with the recent regime as well, with the old head coach, with Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and Paulie Podesta. And it was always collaborative, right? Everything was collaborative. We always heard that. And then as soon as Kevin leaves, it gets leaked out to a media reporter that, Kevin never wanted Deshaun Watson. And then we heard from my guy, Stump Mitchell, who was on the show, Browns running back coach at the time. And I asked Stump about it, and he said, well, right here on the show, and he goes, well, just Kevin and Baker just never really got along. That wasn't his guy. And just kind of how they mismanaged all the quarterbacks under not only just Stefanski, even back to Freddie Kitchens. It's just how everything was just completely mismanaged in the years past. But we've heard this collaborative effort before. So that's the first thing that's got to go down, obviously, is you got to have an owner that's willing to trust the people he paid, and Andrew Berry, right, and Todd Munkin. You guys make the decision. Todd Munkin, you're the one that has a PhD in football and coaching. You've been under Kirby Smart, right? You were just under John Harbaugh. You've been coaching for a lot of years. You put a guy like Stetson Bennett in Georgia in the draft. You made Lamar had one of his better seasons under you, 41 touchdowns, MVP, and developed as a passer as well. And so, you got to let the people, and this goes to Andrew Berry too, to an extent. I mean, obviously Andrew Berry's the general manager. He's going to make the draft selection. But if you're Andrew Berry, you got to let the guy that you guys hired as the head coach, who has all that track record of developing quarterbacks and multiple, not just one style of quarterback, but multiple different styles of quarterbacks, right? He's proven in developing those guys and getting the best out of those guys. You got to let him at the end of the day evaluate with his coaching staff what they want at quarterback. Because if they believe Shedeur Sanders, that's their guy, then that's what you roll with. And that's great because he's already in the building on a rookie deal and you already know what he is. He's already integrated in the building. You could just build around him, right? And overhaul that offense, which they've said they're going to be doing a lot of this offseason, is completely overhauling that offense, right? You need alignment. You need receivers. You got to get another tight end now because Njoku's out of here. So you got to put a lot of your draft capital, free agency resources, trades, getting creative with trades, all in the offense. So if Shedeur's the guy, if that's what the staff feels like, then great. Now, if your coaching staff, though, feels like there's a better option out there maybe that they believe they can explore, you got to explore it. Because at the end of the day, Todd Munkin's not attached to Shedeur Sanders. He wasn't here when he wasn't the coach that drafted Shedeur Sanders. He's walking into the situation. It's his team now. It's his culture now. It's a different era now in Cleveland football. I mean, Todd Munkin and Kevin Stefanski are two, in some ways, polar opposite coaches. Similar in probably a lot of ways. I'm sure they communicate. I mean, Todd did say in his press conference they've communicated before about stuff, and they probably have a relationship just as, colleagues in the league as coaches, but they probably see the game similarly in some ways. But in terms of style of coaching, I think they're completely different. Listening to Todd Munkin talk in his press conference is night and day compared to what I heard from Kevin Stefanski all those years. And that's not an indictment against Kevin. I just think Kevin just had a very passive personality, you could tell. I think Kevin wasn't as outgoing, right, which was reported in the past. Remember Albert Breer said at that time he's just not very outgoing. I've even heard stories from coaches on that staff, that just there was times where Kevin would walk to the locker room and wouldn't say anything to anybody and go right to his office. He just wouldn't say a word. So, I think Todd, though, you can tell he's very brash. He's a little more outgoing. He's definitely a culture setter, that's for sure, and that's a word I heard from him a lot. But I think he's known for being very just frank with people and just very honest in what he believes, which I think is what the Browns needed, right? But if you get in a situation where you have a coach who and his staff, going back to the quarterback now, they evaluate this group, and when looking at Shedeur and Deshaun, which is what's going on right now between now and March 11th, right? So March 11th, that's the day. I think I got my calendar correct. Yeah, March 11th is the start of free agency, Wednesday, March 11th. So at 4 p.m. that day, that's the start of free agency. And a lot of people have written articles in Cleveland recently saying that by March 11th, that day, we'll kind of have an idea of what the Browns are going to do at quarterback. Because, yeah, they could look to the draft. Maybe did they fall in love with Ty Simpson during the draft process? Possibly. They have 2 first-round picks. I think it's more likely, though, they either roll with A, one of these 2 guys in the building, B, sign somebody off the street, the trade or free agency, or that's it. C would be, to me, is maybe, I highly doubt they draft another late round guy to be a starter. I think if they do draft a late round guy, let's say like Miller Moss out of Louisville, let's say, in like the 6th round, I think that's a guy who they would just put as a 3rd string quarterback, just who looking to be a long term backup, possibly could develop into, right? But in terms of who's going to be the starting quarterback in 2026, it's either going to be one of these 2 guys in the building, or it's going to be one of these other guys that I have listed here, right? But if your coach believes, because again, Todd Monken's not attached to Shedeur Sanders. He walked into this situation, but he wasn't here when they took him. It's his show now, though, right? When you hand the keys off to Todd Monken, it's a completely different franchise now than what it was under Kevin Stefanski. Because they're, like I said, they're 2 completely polar opposite coaches. They're 2 different coaching styles in a way. One's more brash, one's more passive. But I think one also has a different idea of quarterbacks. And one has shown he's proven to develop different styles of quarterbacks, like I went over earlier. And so, and I've heard Todd Monken say in an interview recently, some of the traits he looks for in a quarterback. He wants a guy that's a little more mobile. He likes guys that are mobile and can make extend plays, but also can sit in the pocket and make all the throws across the field. So, as long as Jimmy has him first and foremost, allows his coach to make that decision and follow through with his thinking, him and his staff, to fit their system and what they want and their team and their culture they're trying to build. You have to do it. Because if we get in a situation where Todd Monken says, hey, go out, and I'm just throwing out a name. Hey, go out and get me Malik Willis, right? I like Malik Willis. I think if you can get me Malik Willis, I think I can win with that kid. He fits my system. He's mobile. He's been developed. I think I can work with that kid. But if Andrew or Jimmy come back and say, well, we want Shedeur to work because we drafted him last year, that's where a little divide starts to start. Not to say divide, but that's where a little, well, you said I had full autonomy. You said I'm the coach I'm the guy you brought in to develop the quarterback position. I'm the one who's supposed to be the guy to solve this, long drought of not having a franchise quarterback here in Cleveland. But you're not going to let me decide who I want to pursue and go for if we can try to at least do it. You're not going to let me get my style quarterback to run my system. See, that's the issue I hope we don't run into. And again, publicly, they're saying all the right things. But like we've seen here in the past in Cleveland, we've heard this before of collaborative and harmony and peace and love in the building for the last 6 years. And as soon as Kevin leaves, first that he drops is, I never wanted Deshaun Watson. We heard stuff from Stump Mitchell. There wasn't a lot of. There was all kinds of dysfunction going on still. It was never this collaborative effort like everybody painted out through the media. That was all BS. And that's been the biggest issue in Cleveland, in my opinion, is they never had that stability from the top down, from the owner to the coach. And because of that, they never were able to establish a real culture of football, culture that you need to be not only a winner now in the short term, but a long term. How do you become a sustainable long-term winner, right? And built for success for the long run consistently. Shout out to the people in the chat. Let's see here. We got Leap and Cat Production 1777. He said, dude, Haslam is not moving away from the billions of dollars, man. Should overstart. It's a good point there, Leap and Cat Productions. I think that's a very valid point. I've mentioned that on my show a lot. I think it's very hard for an owner to move on from that kind of revenue. And not only that, it's not like let's not act like Shedeur is just a revenue quarterback. Shedeur showed some things last year that he can develop, but maybe I think a different coach, you can get more out of him. I think he could develop more, get better support on the line, receivers, right? I think ideally the best choice for them, and probably the most realistic right now, is Shedeur Sanders because he's on a rookie deal. He's already been in the building. He has chemistry with guys that you're gonna be bringing back, right? But you can work around him. Him and Todd Monken scouted him not once but twice. He scouted him in Georgia. He scouted him. They wanted to bring him to the Ravens. We saw that interaction, right? And so, ideally, Shador is the best choice. I'm only reacting to this possible replacement for him because there is a lot of smoke out there I find odd. Now, a lot of that is just media drawing up hype. Obviously, we're getting closer to free agency March 11th. It's good clicks, right? Clickbait and all that stuff. But they have also kind of by their word, they're not very committal to him. Yeah, they put on the thing, how would you develop Shedeur Sanders, which I think was an exercise to the coaches of when they were going through the coaching process. They had a question on there that says, one of them was, how would you develop Shedeur Sanders? What's your plan for him, right? Which I think they want to know not only your plan for Shedeur, but use Shedeur as a test, like what was your plan for him, but also you kind of get an idea what his plan would be for a young quarterback, period. And I think that was their whole goal there with that. Now, maybe it is Shedeur, but if Shedeur's your guy, why not just come out and say he's your guy? Why have all this other nonsense out there? Why, why do you need to do all that? I don't think that's necessary. I think you should come out and just say Shedeur's our guy and give Shedeur that settling, that confidence. Maybe they don't. I don't know. They know more about Shedeur than we do behind the scenes. They're around him every day. Maybe they feel like this kid needs a little more push or competition. I don't know, right? But you also have a coach who just got here as well who's not really attached. He has no attachment to Shedeur Sanders. And so, that's where I think they could look for another option or brand somebody for competition, which very well could happen, which they've shown that here in the past. So, shout out to my guy in Chicago. Good to see you, brother. He said you can't build a roster with a new quarterback paid $30+ million and you're already paying Watson. You reaching, bro. I'm not saying it though. That's the issue. You guys think I'm the one up here I'm up here saying you need to go pay a quarterback $30 million. I'm not the one reaching. They're the ones that are out here making this, allowing this smoke and allowing this rumors to come out. Well, again, why not just come out and say he's your starter? Why not? Why won't they do it? I don't understand why they won't just come out and say it if he's really their guy. Again, I'm just going off of what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and knowing this franchise and watching it and covering here for the last 4 years. I don't know. I think they're leaving the door open possibly for a reason. I think they may try to bring in a replacement or competition to possibly still replace him. So I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to find out by March 11th. But good to see you, my friend. Now, again, who's going to be making the decision? We hear from Jimmy Haslam that it's going to come down to Todd's choice along with Andrew Berry, right? But also, we heard from Andrew Berry recently talking about the quarterback room and just the overhaul there. And kind of going on to more of Andrew here is kind of saying just, when you hire a coach, you want to give them the full autonomy to kind of, bring the kind of players they want, right? And the kind of players that fits their system, that they think they can win with their offense with, and because he's an offensive coach, but also they can feel like they can build their franchise around. So here was Andrew Berry recently, an exclusive interview with Nathan Segura, talking about one of the reasons why they hired Todd Monken, and kind of going on just that, seems like from what we're hearing from the owner and GM that they're going to be following Todd's lead on how to build this roster. So here's Andrew Berry.
Much is it in terms of when you collaborate with a coach, what they're looking for at each position? Here are the traits I really like in receivers. And granted, there are very few receivers that have all of those traits. So you try to get maybe one guy that's got all that stuff, and then good route runners or the vertical speed or tough, contested catches. How is that is that something that you talk about in this process, or is that now that he's here, now we're really talking about, okay, what we're looking for?
Yeah, it probably starts with more of a macro playing philosophy. Obviously with Todd's track record, there's a fair amount of flexibility, which naturally expands the player pool for you. With other candidates, they have a very specific system that has like some level of, malleability built in within it, where you may have to talk a little bit more detail on some critical positions, but it's really more from a global philosophical standpoint that you have those discussions. And then, once you get into the seat, you may drill down with more specificity as you're actually entering the player acquisition cycle.
So we hear, player acquisition cycle and all this stuff. He used a lot of big words there, obviously, so which he usually does. Shout out to Trill Hill 7714. They're leaving the door open for Watson. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Great comment. I appreciate you leaving. Great point. And I'm gonna get to that in a second. Appreciate your commenting, my friend. Humble, good to see you, brother. Love you, bro. Amazing content as always. Always good to see you, Humble. Yeah, don't forget to drop a like, everybody, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be covering the Browns here all year long, and allowing you guys to come up here and share your opinion too. Certain lives, we dropped the hotline, we dropped the link. You guys come up here and share your voice and opinion as well. But appreciate you guys. Good to see you, Humble. But going back to what Andrew Berry said here, I thought the biggest thing he said there to me was when he talked about Todd Monken's system and the kind of coach he is, his style. He kind of said Todd leaves him open to be versatile to different styles of quarterbacks, right? Going back to what I said earlier, Todd Monken has proven to develop different styles of quarterback. He went from a guy like Stetson Bennett in college, who he got drafted, helped get drafted, and a lot of people thought maybe was overdrafted, who, undersized, 26 years old at the time in college. That was kind of a reach, a lot of people thought, but Todd Monken did a good enough job. You got to give him credit as a coach, and obviously Stetson Bennett for putting in the work. And he was the players first, but he looked like really good under Todd Monken in college. They won 2 national championships. And then you go to Lamar Jackson. When he got a hold of Lamar Jackson, he became a better passer, right? 41 touchdowns, became an MVP. And he helped a guy like Lamar, who was more mobile, right? And obviously, we know what he is with his legs. He's electric. But he really elevated his game as an overall quarterback and sit in the pocket under Todd Monken as well. So we've seen Todd take multiple different quarterbacks and their styles and develop them. And I think that's what Andrew Berry is saying here in these comments, is that we're not going to be attached to just one style. And, Todd gives us the ability to go out and find the best guy possible that we feel like we could feasibly get and matches our salary cap situation and we can possibly acquire, but also, we're not just attached to one style of quarterback like we were in previous years. I think in previous years under Kevin, you had to have kind of a certain style of quarterback, like Joe Flacco, because it fit the system Kevin wanted to run, I think, a lot better at its highest. I think we saw different styles of quarterbacks under Kevin Stefanski's system. And I feel like the guys that were like mobile, like a DTR, or, guys like they just never really truly fit, in my opinion. Even Deshaun Watson, he had a little stretch there before he got hurt in 23 where he started to look better. But even Deshaun just never, I feel like his style never really fit what they were trying to do. When you watched him in Houston, it was a much different style of offense. And so I think, with this coach now with Todd Monken, that gives them a lot more versatility to not be attached to just one style of quarterback. And not just it's either my way or highway in the system. I think Todd Monken will find a quarterback he likes their traits, and he will go from there and building the system around them and getting the best out of them. And so, again, these are good signs. We're hearing from Jimmy Haslam. We're hearing from Andrew Berry, right? Who's be making decisions? What are you going to be looking for? Who's be making the decisions? But also, are you going to let the coach have the full autonomy as well? And I think they will. It sounds like they will. So what are they going to do? Right? Going back to the quarterback one now. Are you going to stick with Shedeur? Are you going to explore your options out, on the market, which we're seeing certain rumors about? Right? And, and so Mary Kay Cabot recently, obviously we know, very plugged in with the Browns. She came out here recently. Let me find the right one here for you guys. I noticed a lot here. I probably should have shrugged this down when I made this. But anyways, she on a recent Hey Mary Kay article, she put, quote, Todd Monken and the rest of the offensive staff will study Sanders and Deshaun Watson extensively leading up to the start of the free agency and trade market March 11th and determine if they need to acquire another potential starter, for 2026. If so, they'll decide if they're acquiring a veteran or drafting a quarterback, possibly with their 6 or 24 picks in the first round, with some combination of those picks. At this point, the number 2 prospect behind Fernando Mendoza is Ty Simpson, Alabama's Ty Simpson. If Monken believes he already has a starter in Watson or Sanders, he'll watch them closely through the offseason program and minicamp to determine which one has the edge. It says it remains to be seen if he'd want to conduct an open competition in camp or name his quarterback a QB1 heading into the camp. She says, "Sorry, this is small on my screen. And give him most of the starting reps. At this point, Sanders has a chance to win the job, but Monken is also intrigued by Watson, as our viewer there left a comment about. and it's curious to see what he might have left. And curious to see what he might have left. I do think they like the idea of keeping their quarterbacks hungry to win the job. So again, she answered the questions there I was just referring to and asking about. Why won't you come out and just name Shedeur Sanders the starter if he's your guy, right? Well, they're not going to, because they, according to her, and I think a lot of what she reports is kind of what they're actually saying. It's their way of putting it out in the public, if you know how it works. So if you get what I'm saying, so it's not a secret. But I think she answered the question there. They like the idea of keeping their quarterbacks hungry, and I think Todd Monken's coming into the situation again, not attached to either of these quarterbacks. I think he's going to come in and try to he's going to set the tone right away. Like, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is how it's going to be. This is the kind of culture I want to have, and it starts with you guys in the quarterback room, right? And so I think they're not going to name a starter probably until I think by March 11th, like she says, right? If they don't go out and acquire somebody else and bring somebody in here, and it's Watson or Sanders as the quarterback competition going into camp, which sounds like that's probably what they're going to do, according to that last line there, I think says it all. I do think they like the idea of keeping their quarterbacks hungry to win the job. So I think that tells me that they're going to leave a competition open. If they don't bring an outside quarterback, they're going to bring and what I mean by an outside quarterback, I'm talking about one of these ones that are going to be getting here shortly, either trade or on the free agency market, not somebody in the late rounds of the draft, excuse me. So I think if that's what they end up doing, I don't think they're going to name a starting quarterback till probably middle of the preseason. I think they'll drag it out just like last year, because let's be honest, it draws a lot of clicks and attention, and it builds up hype into the training camp. And then B, I think they like this idea of this quarterback competition again, keeping these guys hungry. Because I think you look at Shedeur's side of it. Obviously, he's showed some really good things last year, but he's got some ways to go in his development, which he knows. And I think they want to keep him motivated. Yes, you made a Pro Bowl, you did all this and that, but that's just a start. Let's not settle there. You're not a finished product yet, so let's keep moving forward, keep developing. Obviously, there's a new coach in town. He's going to want his quarterbacks to be a little different than the previous coach. And I think the coaching will be a little harder, which I think is what they need. If you're trying to be the best, you got to be pushed. You got to be molded every day. You got to have somebody there lighting a fire in your ass. So I think that's what it's going to be. And then a guy like Deshaun Watson, he's coming off of, a major injury. He tore that Achilles not once, he retore it twice. He tore it twice. He tore it in the game, and then he retore it in his rehab. So if that's the deal, if that's what they do, if they go with one of those two, if they go those two guys, into the camp, they both need to be coached and pushed. And Deshaun, he has been a quarterback at his, he hasn't been that elite quarterback since 2020. So that's 6 years ago. I mean, this is 6 years ago. Shout out to T-Call. I don't want to mispronounce this, but I appreciate for I don't want to mispronounce. I'm sorry. Thank you for commenting. 3138. Let them replace him. Browns are bad company. Browns have nothing to do with his success. Molded, I call BS. Yeah, I mean, the Browns have been a bad company, no doubt about it. Their win-loss record definitely proves that. Now, do I think the Browns do have anything to do with his success in terms of his obviously getting to the NFL? No. But do I think he needs more development as a quarterback? Yeah, I think a lot of these quarterbacks do. I mean, he even knows that. Okay, T-Cal. All right, appreciate T-Cal. I didn't want to mispronounce it. I'm sorry. Appreciate you for putting that in the chat. T-Cal. I appreciate T-Cal. So T-Cal says let them replace him. Now, T-Cal, I agree with you. I think ideally, I think their best option, I think, is just to roll with Shedeur. I think you just roll the guy in the building on a rookie deal, and you can put more assets in your line, because right now the Browns have no offensive linemen, at least starting caliber offensive linemen under contract. So the whole offensive line last year, which wasn't that great, they were older, poorly coached, but they're not coming back. None of them. Wyatt Teller put out his goodbye the other day, and that's it. So they have to get offensive linemen. They need receivers. You need another tight end now, because Todd Monken likes to run a lot of 2-3 tight end sets. Well, David Njoku's out of here now. So you only have Harold Fannin. That's notable. So, and obviously Harold Fann's going to be a stud, but you got to put a lot of draft capital and a lot of your assets into this offense and surrounding the quarterback. Yeah, you can bring the quarterback, but there's not right now. No matter what quarterback they have, and the surrounding pieces are just not that good. And so, I think ideally you want to roll with Shedeur, and I think here's what I was going to get to though about Shedeur and Deshaun, right? I think, and I appreciate the comment, TCal. I think there's no world I think Deshaun Watson should have the edge over Shedeur Sanders. I really don't. What I've seen from Deshaun Watson this offseason, just doesn't seem like a guy to me that's really interested in coming back to Cleveland and playing football in Cleveland. Obviously, the last time he played football in Cleveland, he got booed off the field on a car after he tore his Achilles. So, I don't think he's really dying to get back out there, but in a Browns uniform rather. But also, I don't know, and I said this on my last live with Mike. When you watch his body language and all the stuff he's doing this offseason, you saw him yesterday. I saw yesterday he's doing the tattoo thing, and he's out traveling overseas, which he could do. It's his life. He got his money, and Deshaun can do whatever he wants. He's a free man. But when I saw Shedeur come into Monken's office, right, the first day he was there, I love that. Like, I love that Shedeur was in the building, right? But also I like that Shedeur was just present, right? And he knew it was important to be there. And I just feel like Deshaun Watson didn't really get off to a good start, in my opinion. I just feel like, Shedeur should have the edge because Shedeur was actually there. He was there when the coach was there. When the coach was introduced, guess who was in the building? Shedeur was. And I think that this shows, I think that guy, he's trying to become great. He's trying to be the guy here. And I've never questioned his confidence. I think that's his best trait, is his confidence. And you look, what do the Browns need right now? The Browns need a confident, I think, kind of brash quarterback. I think that's what fits the city. I think that's what's going to help turn the franchise around and the culture. I think Shedeur checks a lot of those boxes, right? But again, ultimately, like my point today is like, if the coach decides to move to, because remember, Monken's not married to Shedeur. He wasn't here when they drafted him. So he could push for a different direction. And if that's what he chooses to do, then the Browns would have to kind of, in some ways, explore that because, he is the head coach. It's his team. It's his system now. So I think, though, Todd Monken will try to see I think he likes Shedeur. I think he'll try to, make it work and see I think he knows I think he probably feels he can get the more out of Shedeur. He can coach him better than he was coached last year. He probably has a better plan in place for Shedeur than the previous staff. Not that I think the previous staff did a nice job in terms of some of the development you heard about after Kevin left, but I think it still should be a lot better. But I think also they know they'll have a better team structure around him as well to help support him because I don't care who you are. You have to have football is the greatest team sport. It takes 11 on 11 every play. And so, you have to have that. TCal said this also would mean the locker room isn't together. No cohesiveness, they are going to get Shedeur hurt. No O-line. Yeah, I agree, TCal. They got to get that O-line situated. I don't care who you put back there. That quarterback getting killed right now because there is no O-line. If you don't have an offensive line, I know that I played offensive line, won a national championship. If you don't have an offensive line, you're screwed. So, and if you don't have an offensive line, and here's the thing with the O-line. Let me get to this. Yeah, you don't have an offensive line, you're screwed. But also, you can bring, no matter who they bring in this offseason, they can go out and get, 2 guys in the draft in the higher rounds, right? Let's say they take a Caden Proctor and they take a guard like a Parker Brailsford. I don't know. I'm just throwing names. If they could draft 2 high round guys, right? They can go sign a guy off the street. Maybe what if they sign Tyler Linderbaum, who I like, the Ravens center. He's only 25, already a 3-time Pro Bowler. Obviously has connections to the staff here. His former O-line coach is now in Cleveland, George Warhop. So I think it makes a lot of sense there to bring him in. I think it's just a perfect fit. I would even overpay for him a little bit. And I played center, so I understand the importance of that position. It's sometimes overlooked, but you got to have a solid center in the middle to conduct that line. Sorry, I get some water. But, I also think no matter who they bring in, it's still going to be a development. Like, it's going to take a year to get that line back to where it should be because they got to develop probably 2 rookies, A. You got to get all these guys integrated into a new system, B, and then also C, you got to figure out what kind of quarterback you're going to have back there. But if it's Shedeur, let's say, right, everything's all going to marinate together. It's like when you put all stuff in the crock pot, right? You slow cook stuff, right? This isn't going to be a microwave fixed with the Browns. The Browns were that bad offensively the last 2 years, even before Shedeur got here. They were horrible. They were even worse the year before. And so I think they have to, that offensive line it's not gonna rebuild overnight. It's gonna take probably about a good year for George Warhop to get in there and establish his room, right? The offensive line room, that culture in that room, the standard, right? The kind of players they want. You're probably going to be developing 2 rookies, right? You got to get them and the quarterback all on the same page. So it's going to take a little bit. It's going to take some crock pot type stuff, right? This isn't going to be a microwave success, like I said. So I think, you got to have a quarterback back there that can improvise, that can make things out of nothing, that can extend plays and make something out of nothing. And I saw that from Shedeur last year. And Shedeur actually was a little more mobile than I even thought he was. I mean, I watched him all in Colorado all those years, and I used to watch all the games and like everybody else. And, even I was a little surprised by some of his mobility last year. He was doing a nice job at the end of the season, stepping in the pocket and running, taking the yards in front of him, right, and getting down and sliding down, not taking a hit, getting the first downs. I think his first game, I remember against the Raiders, he rolled out right and threw that bomb downfield to Isaiah Bond. So he showed he can do that. He likes to extend plays. He always keeps his eyes down the field really well, I thought. And so I think that's a trait that, it's going to be, it works well with Shedeur. With a guy like Deshaun Watson, I don't know how his mobility is going to be on that Achilles. Obviously, when he was the old Watson, he was very mobile. He was great. But, the guy we've seen here in Cleveland, and obviously now with this injury, I just don't know if that's even going to work, which is also another reason why I think Shedeur should have a clear edge over Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't bring Deshaun Watson back in at all. I mean, you have to bring him back technically because he's a 90. If it was me, I would just cut him now. I would just cut him. He does not seem like a guy who's interested in playing football again. Damn sure not in Cleveland. Going back to my point earlier, but I think Shedeur showed he likes to extend plays, and I think he can be mobile enough for Todd Monken. Now, how mobile does Todd Monken want his guys to be? I don't know. Daneo Paul, good to see you. I think Coach Monken will give everyone a clean slate, fair chance to earn their job in their respective positions. And I agree with that, Daneo. That's a great point. Because he's not attached to any of these guys here. He's walking in here. And again, they hired him to come and fix their situation. So, he's not attached to any of these guys. He doesn't owe anybody anything when he comes in here. He's coming in here with his own plan, his own system, his own agenda, his own culture he's going to try to develop. And he has his own ingredients he's going to want to put in there. So I think, he has his own ingredients in terms of what he wants it to look like and how he's going to develop it in his own plans. So he's not attached to any of these guys. And so that's why I think, I think Shedeur probably is the best option and most realistic for the Browns at 26. Plus, and obviously he's already in the building on a rookie deal. But the way they're talking, though, that's why I keep going back to why I'm even doing this live, is I think they're going to explore, I think, other options. Not if they will, they are going to explore. And she even says it right there, they're going to do their due diligence. And so, I think they will explore other options. And I just think that's because he's not tied down to any of these other quarterbacks. And she even goes on to that right here, talking about, we'll go to Malik Willis now. Right, I believe the Browns will do their due diligence on Willis, just like they will for any other quality veteran quarterbacks coming available this offseason. They have already stated that they'll scour the market for the best quarterbacks in their bid to field the best one possible in 2026. Willis was a quarterback I really liked when I studied him at the Senior Bowl in 22. When I talked to him there, I wrote a column that week saying that the Browns should draft him with their first round pick and develop him. And this is a guy, I did a live on Malik Willis recently where I said, and I see right here, I put it's heating up. There's a lot of Malik Willis smoke I've noticed with the Browns. Now, Malik Willis is mobile, right? He's been developed in Green Bay. He sat there, right? I think he kind of got a bad deal in Tennessee. I think they kind of moved off him too early. Malik is kind of a guy, if he pans out, he's the next Sam Darnold type guy. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Sam, but he's on that trajectory. He's on that same trajectory that Baker Mayfield kind of went on, where these guys, were drafted by shitty organizations to start. They went to some solid ones and sat for a little bit, got developed, showed some flashes in a pan when they got their opportunity, right? And then it was good enough for other teams to come out and say, well, we want to take a shot on this guy. And it panned out. It panned out for Sam Darnold, panned out for Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Sam just won a Super Bowl. So, and I think a lot of the quarterback position nowadays, this is kind of going to be the model you have to go with in the NFL, because I think the quarterback position, the development of the quarterback position, they're the most talented guys ever, but they're the most underdeveloped guys ever, from college on down to high school. And I work at the high school level or around the high school level. I see it all the time. It's the development of quarterback position nowadays is severely, it's the worst it's ever been. And it's not these guys. It's not the players. It's not their fault. The coaches are failing them in a lot of ways. But these are some of the most talented, gifted guys we've ever seen. And so I think that's kind of the new model these teams will be looking for, especially if you're a guy like Todd Monken. Does he want to roll the dice with a second-year player, Shedeur Sanders? You know what I mean? Or does he want to try to bring in a guy he feels like maybe in his eyes, I'm not saying I believe this, but his eyes is a little more developed and thinks he can win now with, because he's trying to get off to a good footing here in Cleveland and get off to a good start. I don't know. And so that's why I think they're leaving the door open. And so Malik Willis is the first guy, I had up here. I've already talked about Malik. I think Malik, the Browns will explore. I think are exploring. I think they've made that pretty obvious. They're exploring Malik Willis. And so he's the first guy I would look at. I think if you're looking outside, if you're looking out in the market for another quarterback, I think Malik might be number one and probably the most realistic they can get, because he's going to be a free agent, so you could just sign him outright. And I think he kind of fits what Todd Monken likes to look for in a quarterback. He likes more mobile guys. And he was also written about the other day, Zach Jackson, the Browns reporter, who's pretty plugged in. He even threw it out there. And Zach wasn't saying that that's what the Browns are going to do and that's what they're looking for. But, Zach kind of feels like it's lining up to where it could just line up that the Browns actually pursue him and look at a guy like that. And I think Zach, like myself and others, are thinking you just kind of see, you're just going off of what they're saying, right? The temperature in the room and kind of what they're putting out there and just kind of how they're answering these questions about Shedeur in the quarterback room. You heard it earlier a little bit. They're not very committal to anybody. And so I think they're leaving all their options open because, again, you have a coach, like I keep saying, who is brand new here. He's not tied to any of these guys. So he's gonna come in and do it his way, whether we like it or not. That's just what it is. And so he went on to talk about, Willis' strong showing against the Ravens in December. He had a great stretch there. And so, you've heard a lot of this Malik Willis smoke, right? You've heard this a lot from Zach Jackson. We've heard it from Mary Kay Cabot. We've heard it all over. And so I think with their smoke, a lot of times there's fire. And I think what the Browns are doing is, again, they're keeping their options open, which is why I said they may bring in Shedeur's replacement. Again, I would probably just, I don't know if they can actually get Malik Willis personally. I think he's probably out of the mix. So here's the list I have of guys that are available, all right here on the screen. You can see them all. Right now, not listed is Deshaun Watson. Why I didn't list Deshaun Watson? Because I don't think Deshaun Watson should even be in consideration. Because I don't think Deshaun, based on what I'm seeing from him right now on social media and stuff, and he wasn't even here when Monken got introduced, like Shedeur was, he wouldn't be my consideration. So if Todd Monken says I want to look outside the building for another option outside of Shedeur, besides Shedeur Sanders, right? Guys like Mac Jones, I think, will be brought up. Malik Willis, whose name has the most smoke right now. Now, Todd McShay the other day brought up this theory about C.J. Stroud. And I was even a little surprised by this. He said, don't be surprised in the next couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to free agency, there's going to be some big-name quarterbacks that are currently in destinations that have contracts that are going to be targeted. Teams are going to be aggressive. talking about C.J. Stroud, is one of them. ESPN's Todd McShay said on the McShay Show, quote, does he need a new change of scenery? Does he need a new scenery? And so C.J. Stroud is interesting. Obviously, I know C.J. Stroud, his background pretty well because he was a Buckeye. Love C.J. when he was a Buckeye. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a good human being. Obviously, his rookie year, he was phenomenal. He lit us up in the playoffs. But since then, it's just been very up and down on a roller coaster. You know what I mean? He's had a couple different coordinators. They had a great defense last year, this past season, just weren't able to get it done in the postseason. I think when I look at C.J. Stroud, right, he has all the talent in the world to be as great as he wants to be. C.J. Stroud if you watch C.J. Stroud back at Ohio State, at the Elite 11 in high school, and you just watch him throw a ball, C.J. Stroud's one of the best pure ball spinners in the NFL. That's and everybody knows that. Like, you go ask people in the football world that are actually in the world, coached against CJ, been around him, know him well. He's one of the best ball spinners out there, period. And so CJ has all the talent, But I think why hasn't CJ been able to put it together consistently? I don't know. I feel like a lot of CJ's problems may just be, if you know CJ's beliefs off the field, I think CJ's probably battling a lot of things. There's a lot of when you get this much money and attention and fame, especially after your rookie year, there's a lot of you get pulled in many different directions. I think that's probably a lot of CJ's things. I think CJ probably doesn't feel comfortable a lot of time. He doesn't look comfortable on the field, and sometimes when I watch him off the field, he doesn't seem comfortable. But I think CJ has all the talent in the world. Now the structure around him in terms of the coordinators and all that has been great in Houston. I think they could do a little better job there in terms of just finding one guy to build a system around him, not just marinate to somebody else's system. But their second year, it was kind of similar. I think CJ is somewhat similar to Baker in some ways. Had a great rookie year, had a better rookie year than Baker. But, after that second season, they brought in Stephon Diggs, who, is a little bit of is a prima donna receiver, has a little bit more baggage than most receivers. Kind of like when the Browns brought in Odell Beckham after Baker's rookie year. And I feel like that kind of just was a bad idea then because that gave me flashbacks when the Browns brought in Odell, and I think it hindered Baker's development and it ruined kind of the whole, just that whole momentum they had coming out of his rookie year. And so I think the same thing can apply here with CJ. I think CJ kind of just his development got kind of stalled. I think CJ's also trying to figure himself out in the league still. I think there's a lot there. Now he's under contract, so if the Browns were to pursue CJ Stroud, when you bring him in here, you're saying you're our guy, no doubt about it. But I don't really believe the Texans are going to trade him. I think Todd McShay hears things for sure. I think he has good insight, no doubt about it. Probably a little more than most, but I think they'll explore. They'll probably take a phone call or two. I think the Browns may call, and they may even call the Browns because they've already fleeced the Browns once. So they may try to call back and see if they can do it again. But CJ's a name I think you'll hear rumors about. I don't think ultimately he gets traded. I don't think it's a realistic possibility. Now, if they had a shot to go get CJ Stroud and Todd Monken felt like he had a plan in place to build around him to make him successful, then yeah, you do it. But I just don't. I think that's more of a wow. I think that's more of a what if than actual like he might be available even. And so that's the one we just read here. Going back to my next one now, Terry Pluto mentioned the guy recently. Shout out to Terry. I met him back in the summer. Good guy. Nice guy. He said Mac Jones. He said, my favorite is Mac Jones, the backup quarterback at San Francisco. Jones had a 5-3 record as a backup for Brock Purdy. The 49ers say they want to keep him. He makes $2.8 million on the cap in 2026. I'd offer a third-round pick for him, much cheaper than breaking the salary cap for Malik Willis. Now, Mac Jones, mac and cheese, he's an interesting guy. Had some success early on in New England and didn't pan out. Kind of similar to Sam Darnold in a way. He went to another organization where he sat for a little bit, right? And same organization that Sam Darnold sat and played pretty well when he went out there. So Mac Jones is interesting. He's not as mobile maybe as the other guys I've mentioned, but that's a guy I think if they would have to trade for him, so you'd have to give up something. And so I'm not sure if the Browns really want to give up something for him. But if they did, you would have to say you're definitely saying he's your franchise quarterback, no doubt about it. And so do I think Mac Jones will be a Cleveland Brown? No, I don't. I don't think they'll pursue him. I don't think the Browns really want to give up anything for a guy, especially a guy that's unproven still like Mac Jones. If CJ Stroud, that's different. But Mac Jones, I just don't see it. I don't think that's a guy they'll pursue. I think Malik Willis, in my opinion, I would actually disagree with Terry there. I think Malik's more realistic because you don't have to give anything up for him. You just sign him. So I think Mac Jones is probably not a realistic option. Now, the last guy everybody's talking about, rumors, is Kyler Murray. And my reaction to that would be, hell no. That's it. That's all I got on Kyler Murray. I would not – I am not bringing in Kyler Murray at all. He's too small for the AFC North. He's too small to be a franchise quarterback in general in the NFL. But also, I just don't – what some of the stuff I've heard about Kyler Murray in the locker room there in Arizona, off the field, I just don't think he's ever going to be the leader you want him to be, right? And I think I just don't think he's going to be the guy, and I don't think he'll ever be the guy. And that's not somebody I'll pursue, especially here in Cleveland in this situation. I would not entertain Kyler Murray at all. And so wrapping up this show today, then I appreciate all you guys for tuning in here. What is Todd Monken going to be looking for in a quarterback, though? Right? And Todd Monken answered this question at his press conference a month ago, or almost a month. Well, February 3rd. It's almost a month ago, soon, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And this is very important to me because we could talk about all these quarterbacks. So what is he looking for? And he answered the question here at his press conference. Here's what Todd Monken had to say.
Hey, Todd, Chris Easterling, Akron Beacon Journal. Just want to ask you, as a former quarterback, what is it you're specifically looking for in a quarterback? What is that trait? What are the traits that you feel like are critical for a successful quarterback, regardless of level?
Well, I'm just going to start with personality traits. I mean, when you talk about who's going to lead this team, who has the it factor, who has those characteristics that the team wants to follow and believes in them because the ball's in their hand every down. This game's going to come down to 2-minute situations, 4-minute situations where you've got to be able to execute at a high level. And we're just talking about some of the characteristics that you're looking for, let alone some of the physical traits that we'll get a chance to talk about later. Let's go, Scott.
So he talks about physical traits there at the end, but mainly what he talked about, though, was real traits, right? Characteristic traits. I think what he's talking about is leadership. Can you buy in a locker room? Do you have the it factor at the end of the game? Can you lead a unit at the end of the game? Are you not fazed by the moment? That's what he's going to be looking for, right? A leader, somebody with great intangibles, confidence, right? I think you have a guy in the building that kind of fits some of those traits. I think Shedeur Sanders showed he brings a swagger to the team that he can lead with, but he's very confident. Shedeur is one of the most confident people I've seen in a long time in the NFL. Just really, in terms of a young player, he's very confident. I think it's his best trait, it's his confidence. He never gets fazed by anything. Now, if you can take his intangibles and mold him into a guy, right, that you need him to be in terms of his skill set, just as an overall quarterback and his play, and, he processes the field, everything, his overall development, if you can turn that up to another level, which I think Todd Monken will, I think you got your guy in the building probably. And I think he'll bring us, he's already brought a different atmosphere to the city that we haven't had since Baker Mayfield in terms of just somebody who fits the city, has a little swagger, a little edge, a little different, right? Right. That's what fits Cleveland. That's just what it is. And I think in order to build a culture, you have to be able to fit the environment that you're in. And you have to, reflect the city that you're in. And I think Shedeur is bringing a new, different kind of energy to the dog pound. We've been able to meet all these other fans, and even on my show, I met all these great fans from all over the country who are Sanders fans. I think it's been great. Get to know all these people and talk to them. They're all nice people, and so I think at least all my interactions with everybody's been great. I've had a couple, I've had a few people leave stupid comments before, but I just delete that, move on. But most of my interactions with everybody's been great, and so. At least on my end. And so I know some people haven't, but, I think if Shedeur has all those intangibles, I think he just described, now I think the only reason why they would even go look outside the box for another quarterback is because maybe he feels like there's somebody out there, even in his eyes, more talented or maybe more mobile or more developed. Maybe again, I'm just throwing out what Todd Monken could be thinking, but you would have to be very sure because when you have a kid on a rookie deal like that with those intangibles, and you can just get him in the right coaching development, you got something going there. And you got him on a very team-friendly deal too when you're trying to get out of this Watson contract. And so that's the first thing I think what works in Shedeur Sanders' favor, again, is he has all those intangibles, right? But also going back to my point earlier, I said about, this guy was actually in the building when Todd Monken was introduced here as the head coach, right? And I think that to me said a lot that Shedeur's bought in, but Deshaun Watson wasn't here, right? And you heard what happened going back to where Todd Monken just came from recently. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Going back to what Monken said there about the intangibles he's looking for in a quarterback, right? The characteristics, not just the on-the-field stuff. You see what's going on in the Ravens world right now. The Ravens just had their new offensive coordinator basically call out the franchise quarterback and say he needs to show up to these OTAs here coming up at these mini camps. And it kind of sparked something over on Nightcap the other night with Ocho Cinco and Shannon Sharp here. I'll get it pulled up here. And then I'm gonna play a clip here from Coach JB. Shout out to Coach JB. It was his birthday yesterday. Shout out to you, Coach. where he kind of talked about why it's important for a quarterback to be present, right? And I think Shedeur, if it comes down to Shedeur and Watson, why Shedeur should obviously have the edge over Watson. But here's what happened on Nightcap the other night. I don't know if you guys saw this. Going on in Baltimore right now with Lamar Jackson. Here's what Shannon Sharp had to say.
Can see what quarterback has won a championship that didn't participate in OTAs. All those years except the last 3 years of Tom.
Let me finish my
point.
So you think calling out your franchise quarterback is going to get you to the championship? Yeah, that's real smart. Good job, offensive coordinator. Let's call out the franchise quarterback.
Let me ask you a question. You think Sam Darnold participated in OTAs last year?
Yeah.
Do you think Drake May participated in OTAs last year? Tell me the quarterback that you don't think participated in OTAs, Ocho.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
So in other words, you just hold on.
Again, I'm going to say it one more time because it seems to be going in one ear and out the other. So calling out your franchise quarterback is the way to go about doing things when you want him to show up the OTAs. Is that what you're saying?
Say it is. He didn't single out nobody.
And you said he's talking to Lamar Jackson, the person that hadn't showed up. So is that the way to go about doing it? Calling out your franchise quarterback publicly. How is that supposed to help anything? Outside of just pissing him off.
Whoa. I tell you what, he gonna be more pissed if he go another year and don't get to the Super Bowl.
So that was courtesy of Nightcap there. Shout out to them. But I agree with Shannon Sharp here. Like, you got to show up. You have to be there. You have to be present, right? And I think a lot of these coaches nowadays, I think what this coach in Baltimore is doing, this OC, he's come out and just set it off the rip. Like, he's letting it be known. But I think what Todd Monken's doing in Cleveland's kind of similar. I think what's going on right now, going back to like what Deneo said earlier, he's leaving an open competition for everybody. And I think what he's doing right now is he's trying to see who's out of the quarterback room between Shedeur and Deshaun. You know, who's going to be the guy that really wants to take it? Who's going to come and take it? Right. And I think Shedeur being there when Todd Monken got introduced, I think is significant because I think Todd Monken saw that, but he also saw this guy's committed to being here and he wants to win. He's already in the building working every day. I think that's what's going to give Shedeur the edge. And I think that's where you have to, you're only going to replace Shedeur if it's somebody that you feel like is a superstar in the league already or has that potential. Other than that, I think they probably stick with Shedeur because all these other guys are still what if. You know, Malik Willis is still a what if. Mac Jones is still a what if. You know what I mean? So unless it's like a CJ Stroud, I just don't see them bringing in a quarterback. But I think going back to wrap up this live today, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in, sticking with me this long, and nice to meet some of you new people in the chat as well. Hope you guys subscribe and come back. And some of our other shows, we have more panel stuff here, and we get into it. It gets electric, gets live when we're live, and so. But yeah, hope to see you guys here all year long as we cover the Browns here on the Reel. But you know, I think going back to the characteristic points that Coach Monken said he's looking for, I feel like Shedeur's already checked that box. And my guy JB was on
Jason, our job description.
Jason Whitlock's show yesterday.
There you do. Show up to OTA.
Just queued up for you guys. And I feel like Coach JB, he's obviously a former quarterback developer, was a former quarterback himself, but he mentioned the kind of these character traits. He was reacting to this Lamar Jackson clip here from Nightcap. I feel like kind of what he says here about why you should be present, right? I think this is why Shedeur being in the building when Todd Monken was there, being present, that to me said a lot. When Deshaun's overseas, getting tattoos done and not being there, I think it's pretty obvious who they should roll with in 26, unless it's somebody like a CJ Stroud, which I don't think they're going to get. So, again, they're not going to come out and name Shedeur the starter, it seems like. But Mary Kay said they want to have this open competition. But I think one guy should definitely have the edge for sure. But here's what Coach JB said in reaction to all this Ravens stuff. And kind of, I think what Coach says here, and any athlete, all my guys watching right now, if any of my guys I'm around, you guys know what I'm talking about from what program, my high school dudes, if you guys are watching this right now, take notes here, right? If you guys want to win a championship next year, you want to be a leader of a team, you need to take this mentality here the coach is about to lay out, and what Shannon Sharp was kind of just referring to as well, why it's important for you to be there, right? And so your presence and leadership. Why leadership is just so important. That's what all this is about, is leadership, right? And wanting to be the best you could be. Here's what Coach JB said about all that.
He said, our job description is totally different than yours. Quarterback job description rivals no other job description in professional sports. None. Not a point guard, not a hockey goalie, not a soccer goalie, not a center, not a safety, not a corner, not a prima donna wide receiver. We, in our job description, we are leaders always. We show up to everything on time, lead by both example and our words. And guess what? We win. We're either the GOAT or the hero. And there is no excuse for being late, for missing, for doing any of that. All those other positions I mentioned, we can shed a blind eye to something like that. We'll miss one thing. It's all right. Not quarterback. Quarterback is the CEO, the COO, the captain, the leader. And guess what? He gets paid the most for a reason, and he's also criticized the most. So how do you not show up to something of a team-oriented event, a team-organized, orchestrated event where all 53, at that time about 80, are in camp, in a locker room, trying to assemble and create a culture, trying to create an environment of winning and success? How do you miss that? Yet you're still the highest paid. You bitch and moan and cry when you don't get something you want. And then yet you're the most enabled, entitled group now, where it used to be we're the hardest working jacks on the field. We're the ones that show up regardless. We're the ones that's supposed to go there because we do know we're critiqued harder than anyone else. So I don't understand why now we're critiquing you for not showing up, which is clearly not in our job description. And then yet you're sad about it. You're butthurt. And now you're a victim. Now we're playing the victim. Defending Lamar. What has Lamar done? Lamar has the same amount of wins that CJ Stroud has.
No, he's going to a whole different argument now. But a lot of what he said there, though, I feel like is what Todd Monken was referring to in terms of those characteristics he's looking for. That's what he's referring to when he just broke down there about Lamar Jackson. And what Shannon Sharp was saying, why Shannon Sharp and Ocho were getting into it, but Shannon was right. Like, you have to be at these things. You have to show up. You have to be present in the building. You have to show leadership qualities. You have to show you're trying to lead the team and take that. We're not asking you to do it. We're not going to make you do it. You just go and take it. You just do it. Right. And so I think it's significant more than I haven't heard a lot of people say this, but I think this picture, this is from an old thumbnail I used. Don't worry about the lettering, the right hire thing. That was from an old video I did talking about right after they hired Monken. But that day right there, when he showed up in the building, that was a great job by Shedeur Sanders being present in that building. I'm just telling you right now, because I think if I'm a coach coming in here, the fact that this guy was present and in the building that day showed a lot to me compared to the other guy that was overseas and is out getting tattoos done and doesn't really seem like he really cares to play football in Cleveland again, if not ever, but definitely not in Cleveland. So I think if it comes down to Shedeur, going back to this now, who should the quarterback one be? If it comes down to Shedeur and Watson going into camp, Shedeur should clearly have the edge because of that alone, in my opinion, that alone. And I think Shedeur probably is just a better quarterback right now. Deshaun probably is more talented in some areas if he's the old Deshaun, but the Deshaun Watson we've seen in recent years is not the same guy, especially just mentally. And just he's coming off of that Achilles injury where he tore it twice in 1 year. So, tore it and retore it in the rehab. So I think Shedeur is probably just a better player right now, honestly. So the only reason why I would get rid of Shedeur if I'm Todd Monken is because I feel like I get somebody that's like a CJ Stroud, maybe that I think maybe could be a superstar type quarterback, which he may feel he can get that out of Shedeur too. You never know. So, I think the biggest thing the Browns need right now is stability, culture, and structure, right? They all go together. They're all kind of the same thing. But I think if you have a guy that's bought into what you're doing and likes the coach, like we saw in that picture there, just their relationship, I think you just roll with that guy on a cheaper deal. He's on a rookie deal. And he's still making you a ton of money for a franchise. His revenue is insane. Obviously, he's got one of the biggest fandoms I've ever seen. And so, I think you roll with him, and you got to get. I mean, you need a whole offensive line next year. You have no linemen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. You have to fill out all 5 spots. They have nobody. They have no offensive linemen right now. You have outside of Jerry Jeudy, who, If you're getting the Jerry Judy from 2 years ago, great. But the one we saw this past year, I don't know, drops the ball too much. You need receivers. You don't have a true number one. You really have no receivers right now outside Isaiah Bond, and that's about it. You have one tight end. In Todd Munkin's system, you need multiple tight ends. David Njoku's out of here, so you got to bring another tight end. Probably got to draft one. Probably got to sign one. So you need that. Running back room, you got Quinshon Judkins, right? Now, Dylan Sampson, I think, will be fine. But you probably need one more runner. I think you want to have 3. Could it be Rocket Sanders they bring back? I thought he showed potential. But what if they allocate a draft selection into that? Or they go sign some money there and bring another maybe third-year running back just as an insurance policy, just in case Quinshon, God forbid, knock on wood, got hurt or something. You got to have depth there at the running back position. So, I think your best bet is still rolling with Shedeur probably, because you're probably going to have to overpay for Malik Willis. And I don't know if you want to overpay for a guy that still isn't proven. I like a lot of Malik Willis. I like a lot of his intangibles. I think he has the potential to be really good. I like what I saw from him on tape at the end of the season there. But teams are going to be scouting against him more, right? There was no scouting report against him recently. Now he's going to get scouted on, right? Has he overcome those things that early on in his career he struggled with? You're going to really see that when he goes against a team that's really catered to a game plan to stop him. So it's a big question mark, though. Do you really want to overpay for that? Probably not. If it's a reasonable price, yeah, they probably consider it. But overpaying for a guy like that, no. When you're better off just rolling Shedeur, and I think Shedeur is probably better in some areas, probably more accurate still, probably better pocket quarterback. I think Shedeur's a pretty good pocket quarterback. I think his mobility was a little better. But also it's the other things, the leadership and the intangibles. He already knows that locker room. He has a relationship with these guys. I mean, this young core they just brought in last year, that's going to be the future of the franchise. That's what you're rolling with, right? And you heard Denzel, you heard Myles Garrett recently, you heard other guys not commit to Shedeur. They all said you got to earn the job, but they all believe in Shedeur, right? So I think that says a lot. I think that's a good sign. Carson Schweitzer recently said he believes in Shedeur. So, the locker room believes in the guy, and they want continuity, right? And I think Todd Monken will probably get more out of Shedeur Sanders than Kevin Stefanski ever would have, But also I think Todd Monken knew when he took this job that this is probably going to be this. There's a good chance this is going to be my best bet. Now, again, I think I don't think they're going to commit to him right now. That's why I did this video today, reacting on these names, because I think they're leaving the door open to explore their options, which they probably should, because you don't want to. I mean, you always should explore all your options just in case. And you're trying to figure out what your coach wants. He's a brand new coach. Again, he's not tied to any of these guys, like I said earlier. So I think they're just doing their due diligence, like Mary Kay said. But at the end of the day, I think when it comes down to it, he's probably and should be their guy. And he's just bringing a culture. He's bringing an attitude to this city. I think you put him with a coach like Todd Monken. Shedeur's never had a head coach like Todd Monken. And Todd Monken's obviously got to prove himself as a head coach, but in terms of that style, right? Because when he was coached by his dad, he obviously respected his dad, and his dad was his coach, but it was still his dad, right? He's never had a guy where the coach is just the coach, but the coach also tells it like it is, which we know Todd Monken is like, you know what I mean? And Todd Monken's also proven in the NFL in developing quarterbacks, right? He's a much better offensive coach, I think, than Pat Shurmur. So, because you saw what the Colorado was when Shedeur and Travis left there this past year, especially on that side of the ball. Pat Shurmur and that unit did not look good at all. Looked bad, poorly coached, poorly developed, not prepared, just not very good. So, I think him now with a coach like this is only going to benefit him. And I think you got to allocate so much more of your resource to other positions, and your money too. Like if I can get Tyler Linderbaum, I got to go get that guy. I would rather pay a little more for him because he's proven he's a 3-time Pro Bowler than a guy who's an unproven quarterback. Yes, quarterback's the most important position, but if you're going to overpay, it better be for somebody who's a proven at least Pro Bowler, like a legit Pro Bowler, or like somebody that's legit. You know what I mean? That guy's definitely a starter in the NFL, no doubt about it. So I just don't see that guy in the market right now. C.J. Stroud, I think, is a fallacy still. I just don't believe. I would be stunned if the Texans actually did trade him. Kyler Murray, I don't consider that caliber. And then Malik and Mac Jones, I think, are great upside. They're probably the 2 best options available on the market. But you would have to probably overpay a little bit, because the thing with Malik Willis too, the Dolphins are interested in him, but the GM and the Dolphins was in the Green Bay last year. So was the coach, Jeff Hafley. They kind of have an edge on that already. They have familiarity with them. So I think Malik's going to push the market if he has a good agent. They're going to push that market up, right, and put some heat on everybody where people have to overpay for him. So and get the most money, which he should. But I don't think at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, the Browns' best bet is still roll with Shedeur and rebuilding that offensive line, right? Get a Mekhi Lemon in here would be great. And let's see what Todd Monken could do with a guy like Shedeur Sanders. I think he could do good things with him because I think Todd Monken, I think it's going to be a really good. I like Todd Monken. I think he'll be a good coach. I like his style. I think he could be. I said this before. Why can't Todd Monken be the Kurt Signetti of the NFL? Because Kurt Signetti, when he went to Indiana, everybody wrote him off. Oh, this guy, he's a little older. He might make him a winner in terms of like they'll win, 8-9 games a year or more, maybe win a bowl game. But they're not a serious contender or anything. But Kurt Signetti kind of fits what I think is missing in the coaching world nowadays at all levels, especially in college and pro. And just he knows how to develop. He knows how to establish a culture. He has respect from his players, right? He's not too cute. Right, he's just himself, and the guys respect that, and he's honest with his players, and he gets the most out of his team. I think that's what's all his guys from JMU followed him over to Indiana for a reason. So I think Todd Monken. When I listen to Todd Monken, he just to me, I like his approach. I like the way he talks. I like his leadership style. I think it's what the Browns need. He's proved he's been a part of winning organizations. Right, Signetti was part of Saban's teams. He knew what that looked like. I think the Browns are heading in the right direction. I think they just rolled Shedeur and build the team around him, right? Get a supporting cast in there. I think let's go from there. Trust your coaching and trust your drafting and development, and let's see what happens. So that's my take on all this. But again, I think we'll know by March 11th what they're going to do. And I think the closer we get to March 11th, I think that's when we'll know if they're going to really make a serious run into the quarterback outside of Shedeur. Are they going to try to bring a guy to replace Shedeur? I don't know. But they're leaving the door open. And I think the reason why they're leaving the door open is because Todd Monken, we don't know his opinion on Shedeur fully. Like we know he likes Shedeur. We saw that in that clip, but we don't really know what he's really looking for with this team. Because right now he's doing the last 2 weeks, all Todd Monken's been doing and still doing is all his evaluations. He's looking at all the tape on him. He's looking at all the tape on Watson. He's looking at all the tape on everybody else. And he's figuring out, can I work with this guy? Right? Can I build a system? Can I get to this? Can this guy match what I want to do here? Right? And I think that's what we're going to find out. So a lot of stuff right now is silly. Some of the stuff you're seeing, right? Like I said earlier, I think a lot of it's clickbait and just stuff to get people interested. But I think I just go off of what they say and their actions and reading the temperature in the room. They're leaving the door open, I think, for a reason, because I think they want to explore their options. And I think they want to, and they're finding out what Todd Monken really likes. And so I think Todd Monken's probably watching tape on these guys as well, these other guys, and seeing, do I feel like they can give me a better chance than the guys I have currently? And I think the only guy they should consider currently is Shedeur. Like I said, Watson I would probably rule out. So that's just me. But so, at least Shedeur was there when the coach was brought in. That to me, and that's just kind of my personal. I'd rather go with that guy personally, but that's just me. So especially when I'm trying to establish something here in a winning culture, at least be in the building when the coaches get introduced. If you really want to be the franchise guy, you should be there. But Shedeur was the only quarterback on the roster that was present that day. So maybe Dylan Gabriel was there. I don't know. But they just didn't highlight because I don't think Dylan Gabriel's going to be here past the draft anyway. So but that's all I got for you guys today. Shout out to all you guys. Shout out to Deneo. Shout out to T-Cal. Appreciate you for tuning in, T-Cal. Shout out to Humble, Trail Hill. My guy in Chicago. Good to see you, bro. I can't remember your old name. You changed your name again on me. But good to see you, brother. And Leaping Cat Productions. Good to see you. And shout out to everybody on the playback. Leave your comment below. If you're a Browns fan, Shedeur, whatever. If you're a Shedeur fan, you're following Shedeur. What do you think the Browns should do in 2026? Should they just roll Shedeur like I think they should? I think that's their best option. Or what's a name out there you think they should explore out in the market to bring in here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And we will see you on the next one. I'm out of here. Like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. Gone.